and get started. All right, today we're going to talk about tropical tiny homes in 3 extremely desirable locations. I quickly want to note that if anybody has any questions or any resources that we mention during the presentation, email us info@ecidevelopment.com. We'll make sure that you get those resources. Write that email address down now, info@ecidevelopment.com. We'll make sure that the resources come to you, but then actually send those questions to the Q&A section, which is where it is you're typing into to let us know where you're calling in from. All right, so Keith, we are so excited that you are here with us. Everybody online, this is Keith's very first webinar.
That's right.
Are you nervous, Keith?
Yeah, somewhat, it's the first time for everything, but hey, I'd really like to give a warm welcome to attendees, by the way, one of whom is Andrea that helps us in operations here at Get Rich Education. And, to think about how cool an opportunity like this is, I just want to think about the fact that it is Giving Tuesday here in the United States. So I really want to give gratitude that we can look at such a cool opportunity and consider it for ourselves. So the webinar today is going to be about 1 hour in length here. And I think Rachel already pointed out to you where the Q&A box is at the bottom. So if you do have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and ask your question of the co-hosts here, Patrick and Rachel, at the end of the presentation. And some of you might have heard Rachel and I on the podcast just over 2 weeks ago, where we talked about an awful lot of this. And an interesting thing is one of the listeners of that podcast is a tiny homes builder here in the United States. And they heard our Tropical Tiny Homes podcast episode, and they bought some tropical tiny homes. So that was pretty impressive. I mean, who knows more about building and operating tropical tiny homes than a developer of them in the United States themselves? So I think that really said a lot. But we have an awful lot of ground to cover. I know you two, Patrick and Rachel, are going to help lead us through them.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, Keith, for the opportunity to talk about this. I know when you and I initially connected, we were talking about teak, the hardwood, and I recognize many names on the screen here who've inquired about teak or are owners with us in the teak farms. And it's neat to see that there is such an international interest from people. And, we're going to talk more about why people are looking at international opportunities and why the tiny homes really make sense. But I'm excited that we're able to do this. I'm excited that this is your first webinar. And it's neat to be able to see each other this time versus the podcast where we're listening to each other. So awesome. Thank you again for joining us. And as mentioned, make sure you're typing your questions into the Q&A section of the control panel. And then at the end, Keith is going to read those out loud for us and we'll get them answered for you. So a quick hello to everybody again. My name is Rachel Jensen. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for ECI Development. I'm originally from New York, but moved down to Latin America about 8.5 years ago for work. I found an opportunity as an intern in a development company based in Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Belize, Panama. And while it was only supposed to be 90 days, and then I was planning to go off to the Peace Corps in Panama, I ultimately decided to stay with the organization. And at this point, I've been with them for 8.5 years. I was living in Nicaragua initially, and then made my way over to Belize about 1.5 years thereafter. And it's been a tremendous experience. I think it's been, fascinating to see this international world grow. More people are realizing that there are affordable opportunities for them out there. Something that we've noticed as a development company, and this really was about 25 years ago, is that it was really difficult for the average Joes or the average investors to get involved in overseas real estate because there weren't really financing options. And, in the States where we're so used to having 80% financing, I think at this point it's like 3.5% interest. And then coming down to a beautiful place like Belize, where you're on the Caribbean, you sort of expect to be able to have financing like that. And 25 years ago, you'd have to come with all cash. And, it's still like that to some extent, but as a development company, we've been able to offer financing options. So it's neat to just see more people, a younger demographic as well, people who are coming down, buying, investing, and really fulfilling a dream. So awesome. Welcome, everybody. Really excited to have you here. And in addition, we do have another special guest with us today, Patrick Hebert. Patrick is our Chief Operating Officer for ECI Development. And Patrick really is the brainchild behind bringing the tiny homes under the ECI Development wing. As a development company, we've been around for over 20 years at this point. And what we've been building traditionally are condominiums. We have home lots available. In addition to that, we do custom homes. We've worked with branded hotels. And Patrick realized that there was this huge hole in the market. But I realized, Patrick, I don't want to steal your thunder here. So I'll pass the reins over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and give us a little bit more about your backstory?
All right, thanks, Rachel. I'll go steal away. You're a much better speaker than I am. So I promise I won't take too much time of everybody's time today and get through some of the slides pretty quickly. But I want to tell you a little bit about the tiny eco home, smart home movement that we're part of, and ECI has really become the de facto standard for tiny eco homes in Central and South America. And so we'll get right into that. And I think I've got control here, Rachel, right? Or don't need it because you've got it.
I'll change it. Sometimes everybody bear with us with the technology. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So if you're trying to do it, Patrick, and it's not going, just let me know and I'll shift it for you.
No problem. I'm supposed to be the technical guy, but this is a brand new laptop that I'm on. This is the first thing I'm doing on it. So this is a true test of the laptop today. So a little bit about the opportunity. We talk internally a lot about the paradigm shift of what's going on for our business, and that's there's always been a real certain list of things that the travelers have for we have property in, as Rachel said, numerous countries in Central and expanding into South America, and travelers have always kind of wanted their certain level of luxury place at a good cost, and that's kind of where everybody goes. But what we're finding now, and it's been a real movement towards this, is they also want a kind of a unique experience where it's not the standard experience that they always are used to. So something a little off the beaten path. Another big part of what people are looking for is something that's earth friendly, and sustainability comes into play a lot. So they just don't want to have a high environmental impact and be an earth-friendly vacationer or snowbird or digital nomad, and we'll get a little bit into those things. But they also want convenience, especially the younger travelers today. They really are looking for smart home technology, controlling things they're doing with their smartphones and things. And again, we'll talk a little bit more of that once we get in. Go ahead, Rachel. So on top of all, the typical, minimalist, eco-friendly, smart home movement, we obviously, everybody is painfully aware that in this last year we've been hit with a worldwide pandemic, and what that did for a lot of businesses was terrible, and obviously, for the people affected by it, is a horrible thing. And we really, our hearts go out to everybody that's been affected by it, for sure. In our business, though, what we've seen is it actually has created a lot of interest in the properties we had, because as this was happening and we were developing tiny eco-friendly communities, a lot of people were looking for a plan B, and things going on in the U.S. and Canada, from the elections to riots to all sorts of things going on. And not to make a political commentary here at all, but we've really seen a real increase in interest in what we're doing. And on top of that, I think the one thing that for our properties, what the pandemic has really done is it's made what I call knowledge workers discovered that they could work from home. Whether you're an architect or whatever kind of job you have, if your occupation is based on really what you know and not so much on what you do with your hands or so on, you've discovered that maybe you've always known it, but now you've been able to prove it, that you can work from home. And I think the second part of that discovery is not only you have discovered that, but your employer has discovered it. And in fact, we take our own medicine in this case. So we have offices in hot climates, Belize, Panama, Nicaragua, and that takes a lot of air conditioning and a lot of use of power. And when people started working from home, my job as a COO, I started noticing how little the expense was in our offices. We didn't have to air condition them. We didn't have to have the lights on all day. We didn't have, everybody was working from home. We had way more productivity because people didn't have commutes. We had all those different things going on for us. And what, I started doing a little research in it, and companies have done studies on this and realized up to like 29, 30% increase in productivity from people that work from home. So we were discovering the same thing that others were discovering. And, that really made a change in the way we thought too. And certainly understanding our potential customers. And when you're working from home, the next step, the next logical stage that you go through is, well, okay, I'm living in Michigan and I'm working from home, but the weather's getting kind of ugly. And I can really have my home wherever I want it to be. As long as I have a good internet connection, I can take my work, whether it's Panama or Saudi Arabia or wherever you want to go. That people were becoming more aware of that fact. And that's always been something that a digital nomad is kind of known, and that's what they do, kind of working on the road. But now it's become an enormous part of the population that's really discovered that. So it's become a combination of vacation and work, and it really makes the vacation become a lifestyle. So next slide, please. So, we talk about it internally, like I said, as the tiny eco home paradigm shift. And my background is in software. I developed software for the energy industry. I'll give you a couple minutes of history in a second about how that applies to this and what we're doing now. But there was really a paradigm shift that allowed me to create a software that fit a gap that was there and really helped, certainly helped in my career and the ROI for myself. But when we talk about paradigm shifts, we're not talking about fads like mood rings and pet rocks. Those are fads. They come and go. Some of you probably aren't old enough to know what mood rings and pet rocks are, but that was a thing in my time anyway. But when we're talking about actual paradigm shifts, it's like Encyclopedia Britannica to Google. When I was a kid, we'd go to, my parents spent a lot of money. Education was, they're big on education, and they wanted the encyclopedia set in our home. And so when you wanted to know how fast a hippopotamus can run underwater or something, you dug through these things and page after page and found your answer. But that's a paradigm shift. That's the kind of thing where you can go from you don't see Encyclopedia Britannica salespeople going door to door much anymore. That's a main change. And there's a lot of those examples, like from regular, what we call snail mail, regular post to email. Obviously, there's some stat, I can't remember what it was, but 95 or some percent or higher of all mail is electronic at this point. Even hardwire phones. It wasn't too long ago that most of us had a landline phone in our home. Now I live in a few different countries that we work in, and I don't have a hardwired phone in any of my homes. So it's always the cell phone. And I remember when we were a kid, we pictured, like Scientific American kind of picture of what a video phone was going to be like. And we pictured this big TV box thing that would sit on our counter, and we could talk to our grandmother in another state or country or whatever. And that was what a video phone was going to be like. I didn't certainly picture that I was going to be carrying my video phone around in my pocket all the time. And so that's another big paradigm shift. The other day I was in Miami and called an Uber, and a driverless Tesla came up to pick me up. And I actually had this car had no driver. It was an Uber car with no driver. To me, that was the first time I'd seen that. Maybe that's common for some folks that are living in cities that have that. But for me, that was strange. In fact, Uber gave you an option to accept or decline, and I declined. And in hindsight, I'm kind of like the techie guy. I should have got in that car and taken that ride because I wanted to experience it. But I'm not quite personally at the point where I'm ready to have a driverless car take me to my destination. But I thought it was, you know, there's an amazing paradigm shift that I didn't think I was going to be around for in my lifetime, to see driverless cars actually allowed, I mean, even legally on the road. So, you know, and recently Wi-Fi on airplanes. So that these are the kind of examples, and sort of spend a lot of time on the paradigm shift slide, but that's the kind of thing we're talking about when we're talking about a minimalist movement and an eco-friendly movement. And what ECI has really done is what we call TESS, tiny eco smart homes. And we've really combined 3 of these movements together, and it's been incredibly popular. And, you know, we're selling out these communities quickly. Oh, I see. They're coming up in one at a time. Saying, am I supposed to continue to make things up, Rachel, on this slide? I wasn't sure. Okay.
Hey,
So,
you have to keep on going, Patrick. You're doing great.
Thank you. Thanks for the support. So I was talking about some paradigm shifts, and just to kind of, for me to bring home, I'll go through these examples quickly, but you know, in the energy industry, deregulated, and when I was creating software back in the late 80s, early 90s, the energy industry in Canada deregulated in 1992, and we went from thinking, okay, we have one customer, it's the government, and then it deregulated. In Canada, there's only a few provinces, but they each deregulated, and we thought, all right, now we have 12 customers, right? And we were excited about that. And then in 1994, the US deregulated its energy systems, and there was all of a sudden 3,000 private companies providing natural gas and power and that sort of thing. And, you know, we were just in the right place at the right time, building software for that. Wasn't too many competitors around because there hadn't been a market. But now that I mean, that paradigm shift alone created a big market for us. But it also goes the other way. It can, you know, paradigm shifts can make great markets, and they can completely kill a market instantly. After I'd sold that software company, I created one called Easy Calls, and it was basically my buddy and I that had started the software company. He moved to Cayman Islands, and I lived in Canada. And when he called me, it was $2 a minute to make that call. When I called him, it was 18 cents. So I thought, that's not logical. It's the same call, it's just where it's originating. So I stuck a bunch of computers in a closet and made them do the dialing. And you could go on the website and just say, call me at this number and call this guy at this number. And it would join 2 calls together, basically 2 18-cent calls together. And, you know, we charged whatever it was, 75 cents or something, and we had a great margin on it. But there's, you know, the moral of this story is, I thought it was a great thing. No employees, just a bunch of computers sitting in a closet making a lot of money. And then all of a sudden, voice over IP came out, and Skype and companies like that just blew us out of the water in a matter of weeks. We didn't move quickly enough. We didn't see it coming, and, you know, Easy Calls disappeared. And that's, you know, how you can create it, and you can destroy it with a paradigm. But paradigm shifts are a place where you can make a really good ROI if you're in the right place at the right time. And just one other example is, you know, on savings, it goes as well for ECI development here. I'm actually just arrived today at Grand Pacifica, one of our flagship properties. This one's in Nicaragua on the beach. It's a little bright out the windows behind me, but the ocean, Pacific Ocean, is right behind those windows. And when we started developing the infrastructure here 15 years ago, you know, we did a fiber optic backbone underneath the ground here all throughout the property. And it's a big property, 2,500 acres. It costs millions of dollars in infrastructure to put all these things in. And then, you know, now 10, 15 years later, nobody does that anymore. It's all, you know, Wi-Fi based, and it's a few $100s, right? So that the kind of change that you can, that happens like that, you know, it's just, it's pretty astronomical. Go ahead, Rachel. Thank you. So the tiny home paradigm shift, and, you know, again, I'll try to move through these a little bit quicker, but a tiny home tends to be considered something under 600 square feet. Then there's kind of another category of mini homes, 600 to roughly 1,000, and then you get into more standard size homes. But a lot of people say, well, I can't live in under 600 square feet. But when you're doing that in a tropical environment, like we are down here, you're really not home that inside your house that much. You're at the beach, you're kayaking on the river or whatever you're doing, and you're outdoors a lot, and even your yard is part of your home, because there's just never a time of the year where you can't sit outdoors comfortably. So what do you end up using in these homes? I challenge anybody here, even with big homes in our resorts, to really honestly ask themselves, do they use more than 600 square feet in their home? I mean, they're in their bedroom at night, they're in the kitchen during meals, and maybe you're in a dining area, and that's about it. Like, guest rooms are empty, all these other, spaces, great rooms and all those things, they should, here, I maintain they should be outdoors. That's where you're going to be spending your time. So we really focus on that. And so when you talk like that and you ask people, have you ever felt like, simplifying your life? Half of Americans have, and it's, a movement that's really gained traction. And it's referred to as a right sizing trend. It's not necessarily downsizing, but kind of getting to the point where you're actually making use of the space that you need. And there was a huge, if you see the graph at the bottom, you'll see a huge spike in it around 2014. A lot of that is millennials, kind of became in the age of buying in that era. The tiny home minimalistic movement has been around since the early 80s, late 70s, but it's really just gained traction over the last years. Partly, with millennials also deciding what they can afford. A tiny home is much less expensive. And as I mentioned earlier, a plan B, it's a great plan B plan. You don't have to, spend a ton of money to have an option. And at the same time as having a plan B option to move to or retire to or whatever you want, you can get a great return on investment as a rental property in the short term, because they're just super popular little homes. So we've seen a massive growth in this, and that's okay. We're good, Rachel. You read my mind. Now we've seen tiny home vacation specialists now, where a company called Getaway.com opened up 30 new tiny home destinations in 1 year. There's a Sarina is another company, and they've plunked down. I think they're even beyond that. But these are communities, tiny home communities that digital nomads love. Like a digital nomad, talked a little bit earlier, but it's really sprung from the whole idea of working from home. So you can put your home wherever you want it to be. Digital nomads will often spend 3 to 6 months in one location, then pack up and go work from somewhere else. And we've actually seen with our properties and our communities, we have a test community, a tiny home community in Belize, Nicaragua, and Panama, and each one of them has something special about it. The Belize one is over the water, kind of Tahiti bungalow style, really cool environment. The Nicaragua one here, which I'm a little sweaty actually. I just came from the one here in Nicaragua. Walking around the river. It's beside a river and right on the Pacific Ocean beach. One of the most beautiful beaches I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of beaches right here. So it's a beautiful spot. And then in Panama, it's a little bit further up in the mountains. You have beautiful views. It's a little bit cooler climate, kind of like springtime all year round. So everyone has a little something different to offer, and so you don't have our digital nomads don't have to lock themselves into one. They can kind of do the circle tour and spend a little bit of time at each one. And so, what we've seen is people that are investing in these are buying one of these homes because of their low price, buying one in each community and taking advantage of that the digital nomads are moving around. I think I've spoken about most of this already, and we'll kind of move through it. These slides are available for everybody that wants them, and we can certainly, you can grab them and go through them in detail for sure. And I know he's got some question and answer period at the end here, so I think I'm probably taking more time than I should. So I'll move a little quicker.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Patrick. We just have a couple more slides here for this eco-friendly and the smart features, which I think are fascinating. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about them?
Sure. And eco-friendly movement, really, sustainability movement really needs no introduction, I suppose, but it's a worldwide phenomenon. Now, bear with me. First of all, I'm not an eco freak. I've been developing, solar, wind powered homes for 2 decades. I've lived on a boat in the ocean where you don't get to have a long extension cord. out to the boat to produce power, but you also learn to be conserving power and water and those things when you're out on the ocean too. So it really became a sustainability movement for myself personally. And I don't think anybody likes paying power bills. So I got to admit that my favorite part of, these off-grid homes that we're building, and all these communities are either completely off the grid or hybrid homes, which are a mix of solar, wind power, and grid power. But to me, I just really like not getting any power bill or anything like that every month, and it really helps your ROI too. If you don't have those kind of utility bills, and you could be 100% occupied all month, and it doesn't matter on the utility cost side. You don't have a power bill if you have an off-grid home. So the tiny homes, by their own design and nature, they have a small footprint, so they're eco-friendly anyway. But we do a lot of different things with them. We have the ones in Belize, for instance. So you have our own desalination. You're using the ocean water to create the fresh water for the home. We do a lot of gray water reuse, where excuse me, that the water that comes out of your sink drain and your kitchen is also used to water your lawn or your flowers in the backyard and those sorts of things. We have active, septic treatment systems that the water at the end can also be used for whatever you want it for. And we use a lot of natural materials for, depending on the location we're at. For instance, in Panama, we're using a lot of teak because we have teak farms there, and it's a renewable resource. So we take advantage of a lot of these features in the eco-friendly side as well. But most of it is really about, one of the things that I really like about these communities too is they have community gardens, community orchards, even some with community hobby farming. So literally you could almost spend nothing if you're living in them, because you can go to the garden and go to the orchard here in any one of these countries, pick papaya or mangoes or bananas or whatever, and really have almost no cost of living. So that's another thing that I really like about these communities. And form meets function. And some people are into the smart home thing. I love it, but some people are not. Go ahead there, next. So it's a choice. We can put a lot of smart home technology into your home. But like I said, some people prefer not to, and you can decide that. I like it mostly for cost savings. Sure, I use it to tell, Alexa, turn the music on. Oops, I shouldn't say that so loud. She's going to literally turn the music on here. But like when I left Panama last night to come to Nicaragua this morning, and when I walk out the door, I just say, Alexa, I'm going to Nicaragua, and she turns off everything in my house, turns off the air conditioner, sets it to, dehumidify and things like that, and sets it up for my apartment in Nicaragua to be ready for my arrival there. And there's even, distance things. So when my phone gets within a couple miles of my home, it turns on the air conditioner and that sort of thing. So it's comfortable by the time I get there. And you can do all sorts of different things. And I'm a technology guy. I'm a nerd at heart. So I kind of love that stuff. But a lot of people don't like that. They kind of want to be, in control without their smartphone or whatever. But what I like from a rental perspective is, when somebody checks out, the systems can be set up to automatically switch off air conditioners and things, and if you are on the grid and you have an air conditioner, and especially in these warmer climates, that's one of your biggest expenses. And if their smart home technology knows that a person is checked out of their rental unit, then we can have it automatically turn the air conditioner off, and you're not wasting money and those sorts of things.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Patrick. And this is just an example of the smart home technology that we use. And so owners have a choice if they do want the smart home technology or not. Then we can integrate it for you. I'm on the flip side. I'm like, ooh, I don't want Alexa, I don't want Siri, but I can see how, especially from an investment perspective, how these sort of resources would be pretty helpful. So awesome. Thank you, Patrick. That's awesome. I think that you give a great overview of the tiny home market and why it is that we're doing what we're doing. So I'm going to just talk here for about 20 minutes about the opportunities, and then we'll leave the next 10 minutes for Q&A. So why are people buying property overseas? And I see that we have a handful of people here online, and you're probably all online for a different reason. Maybe many of you are looking for an investment in another country. You're looking to diversify your holdings or your portfolio. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. Maybe some people are looking for residency options, having that plan B. With a couple of our opportunities, you are able to pair that up with residency in that country. We're not going to talk about that specifically during this webinar, but if you would like more information, our team can certainly get in touch with you, and just message us info@ecidevelopment.com if you'd like residency information. Some of you may be looking to relocate. I know just around the world, generally, there's a lot of craziness happening right now. And so being able to have a plan B or a landing pad or a place where you can just go sit by the beach for a while and decompress may be something that's on your mind. And then, of course, there's the path of progress in a lot of the countries that we work. As you heard Patrick mention, Nicaragua, we're in Belize, Panama. These countries really are on the path of progress. And we have real estate investment curves we're going to talk about, because each country really is at a different location in terms of development and then opportunity for profit. So as we mentioned, we have real estate tropical tiny homes in 3 countries right now: Belize, Nicaragua, and Panama. And we're going to just dive right in and go through that. But overall, when we're looking at the general public right now, about 11.6% of North Americans want to own international real estate. And for a while, I think that this has really been a taboo topic in some sense, where people thought that in order to own real estate overseas, you needed to be a multi-millionaire. And now, as people are seeing it's becoming more affordable and there are options for financing, they're looking at other opportunities. And so we're going to talk specifically about the tiny homes. We have them in the 3 countries that we mentioned: Belize, Nicaragua, and Panama. And we really know, and as Patrick mentioned, that it's not a trend. It really is a lifestyle. It's a way of living for people. And maybe you personally wouldn't live in a tiny home. There are a lot of people who are looking to downsize, who want to reduce their utility bill, who do want to serve this market of people who are coming and spending time in these homes. And so with the tiny home specifically, there is incredible rental opportunity with it. We have the 3 different properties, and all of them cater to a different market. In addition to that, we have people who want to reduce their carbon footprint, like we mentioned, downsize all your stuff. I know North Americans, we tend to just acquire and acquire and acquire, then we get storage units, but it's neat to be able to have that sort of flexibility. And so we're going to just jump right into the opportunities. And with the 3 different countries we're working in, I think it's important for you to really understand your goals and understand what it is that you want to get out of the ownership. Maybe for you, it really is an investment, and your highest goal is cash flow. I know a lot of us like cash flow. We want to know that we're going to be getting monthly in on a monthly checks in on a regular basis. And so if you're looking at products that are going to cash flow right away, then you're going to be looking at the top part of this real estate investment curve here. You're going to be looking at places in Pacific Costa Rica or Panama. And the reason for that is because these countries already have a mature market. But because they already have a mature market, they tend to be more expensive than other places on the curve. As you go down the curve, you see places that have more opportunity and potential to appreciate because they haven't yet plateaued. When you think like Cancun, for example, or even Pacific Costa Rica, the Guanacaste area, that area has tended to plateau. It had its heyday, and maybe they're going to continue developing, but appreciation is not necessarily moving as quickly. So when you look at places like Nicaragua, Caribbean, Costa Rica, Argentina, Belize, you're seeing that these countries have more potential to appreciate because it hasn't yet gotten to that top. Places like Belize are at that sweet spot of the curve where you do have a great opportunity for continued appreciation, but you're also getting that cash flow because the market is maturing in the tourism industry. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these. We do have specific webinars on each country. If you would like the 101 presentation, email us at any point, just put country 101 and we'll know exactly what you're talking about. Belize 101 will send you the whole hour webinar. But we're finding a lot of savvy investors are investing in Belize for 3 primary reasons. One is the close proximity to North America. Number 2 is that English is the official language. And number 3 is the advantageous real estate laws here. There's no capital gains tax in Belize. There's also very low income tax on rental properties, 1.75%. So these are some reasons why investors are looking at Belize. In addition to that, we've seen that tourism is on the rise. Obviously, 2020 has been a very strange year across the board. So we don't expect that to go up in 2020, but we are seeing now at the end of the year, tourism is starting to continue here and people are starting to come. And Ambergris Caye, which is the island, it's the primary tourism hub off the coast of Belize mainland, is the hub for tourism. It produces 70% of the tourism revenue for the entire country. And there it is. This little island produces 70% of the tourism revenue for the entire country. So when you're thinking an investment, you probably want to be going where it is the people are going. And Ambergris Caye is certainly the right place for that. Ambergris Caye has really grown into a really remarkable tourist destination. One of the big reasons is we parallel the reef. This is where I'm currently calling from, is Ambergris Caye. Look out the window and we can see the reef right there. It really is beautiful. It's a fun way of living. It's a fun vacation spot for people to come. You rent golf carts, drive around the island, check out the different restaurants and beaches. And it's just a really neat sort of environment here. And one of the big draws to this island is the diving, because our island does parallel the reef. We have a lot of divers who come down and fishermen. I saw somebody was asking about fly fishing. You can find a lot of great fly fishing places here around Ambergris Caye. And so the community that we developed within Ambergris Caye is called Tess Village. Belize Tiny Homes Tess is tiny, eco-friendly, smart village. And this is a really unique concept for Ambergris Caye because it's over the water. Within Ambergris Caye, around Ambergris Caye is a marine reserve, and within the marine reserve, you cannot build over the water structures that you reside in. It took us about 2 years of working with the environmental department to get approval for this project, because essentially we're located in a tidal lake, not in the reserve. It's private land that's on Ambergris Caye, but it's not necessarily considered part of the reserve because it is private land. So we're really excited about this. I think for an investment perspective, when you're thinking about serving the market, you're thinking about unique opportunities, what's going to draw people to your property. The fact that this is one of the only over the water structures that's in the country, I think is a huge draw for people. And, we can go to Google Analytics and see what people are looking for. And when people type in, over the water bungalows, they're thinking like Maldives or Bora Bora, but they want to stay within this hemisphere here. They see the Caribbean, they see the beautiful water here. They want to be able to have an experience like that. So they want to be able to find that in Belize, and now they just can't. So it's very interesting. I think this is a very interesting proposal for people who are looking for something unique, looking at a Caribbean destination, like the fact that English is the official language. Because of our location specifically, we are able to build over the water, and it is technically part of San Pedro or Ambergris Caye rather. We're on the west side of Ambergris Caye. You're able to get there from a 5-minute boat ride directly from the heart of San Pedro over to the west side. And it's just a truly, truly stunning location. It feels like you're on a private island, but you're still connected to Ambergris Caye and you have all the amenities around. So right now there are 2 homes available within the first phase of the tiny homes here. They're starting at about 170,000. We have one bedroom model and one bedroom and 1 studio at this point, and we'd be happy to get those details over to you if it is of interest. You can see here on the site map, number 18, number 19. One's a studio model, one is a 1-bedroom model. They're going for about 170,000 plus closing costs and furniture. And I'm thinking most of you on the line are investors. We are happy to send you performas. Please note that these performas are for cash payments. If you are looking to finance, we can certainly send you the details with the financing included, but ask us about any cash specials if it is that you are able to do it with cash. So just note all in about 190,000. And still, when you look at the net numbers at the end of the day, the net numbers, you're still at about 8%. I feel like I just have to say that these are just projections. It was very hard for us to do a real comp of this or recon of this opportunity because there just isn't really anything to compare it to. So I think personally that the ADR, the average daily rate, is a little low. We have it at averaging about $175 a night. In Bora Bora or Maldives, you're looking at about $750 a night. So I think that we have a lot of opportunity there to grow the ADR. And, that's obviously something that we can manage regularly. Every day we can look to see how occupancy is looking. And if we tend to be sold out all the time, we know we should probably up the ADR. But again, I can send this out to folks. I don't need to go line item through line item since not all of you may be interested in it, but I'd be happy to do that with you if Belize is of interest. We're going to jump now. So that was Belize. We're going to jump now to our Nicaragua tiny homes. This is at our Ava community, which is located steps away from the beach and within our Grand Pacifica community. Grand Pacifica is a development that we have been developing over the past 15, 20 years. It's a really remarkable piece of land. It's about 2,500 acres, 3.5 miles of direct Pacific waters, two of the best surf breaks in Central America, incredible swimming beaches, and just really a divine and peaceful place to be. And I know, Nicaragua has this bad reputation. And I think because from the 80s, and a lot of people have thought about the revolution, and they just really haven't gotten their mind out of that propaganda that they heard from the 80s. And those of you who are able to look past what the media says, and you really are a forward-thinking investor, I think you could do very, very well by investing in a place like Nicaragua. It's a place where, as a company, we have felt very comfortable for over 20 years. We've been developing, we've invested over $25 million of infrastructure in our Grand Pacifica property. And as a result, over the past 15 years, while we've had rentals, we've been able to see and judge and determine if it was a rental market that made sense for us to continue developing. And we have noticed that it is an incredible place. There's incredible opportunity there because we do have two of those best surf breaks right there on site. We get a lot of surfers who are coming. We get a lot of adventure travelers who are coming, digital nomads, because Nicaragua is one of the most affordable countries in the region to live. You're finding a lot of expats, a lot of retirees, again, those digital nomads who are coming down and looking for a lower cost of living. So I would highly recommend you learn more about Nicaragua, even if it has never been on your radar, even if you think it may be the scariest place in the world. I would highly recommend doing yourself a favor, requesting the Nicaragua 101 webinar and hearing more about it. It has been named over and over again over the past years the safest country within Central America, which surprises a lot of people, but there's huge potential there. A lot of times Costa Rica and Nicaragua are compared to each other. Costa Rica has plateaued, the Pacific side of Costa Rica has plateaued because it's been around for 25, 30 years. So it's a lot more expensive. When you're looking at the two countries, comparatively, and you're looking geographically at them, they're very similar in many ways. So I would highly recommend Nicaragua. Nicaragua tends to be at the bottom part of the real estate investment curve. I would say Grand Pacifica specifically is probably more so under Belize, because we've developed a name for the resort over the past 15 years. We've built a reputation. We've built a place for people to come and visit. So we've already had that opportunity to build the cash flow, to build the tourism market. But as a country, there's an incredible amount of opportunity of appreciation here. Here are some photos from directly from the site. The picture on the left-hand side is a stream right there next to the Ava community. This is a picture from the surf breaks right in front of Grand Pacifica, and the beach is top left. I mean, it truly is a remarkable, stunning place. And I would highly recommend everybody comes down if they haven't had the chance to do so. And so within the Ava community, when we were putting the plans together and really identifying our target audience, what we realized is going back to the surf / digital nomads. And in addition to that, the wellness retreat groups. So we've already had a lot of these wellness groups come to Grand Pacifica before, but there just hasn't been enough space for them to stay because they come in good sized groups. And right now we only have 22 beachfront condos. So we're not able to accommodate these larger groups. And so by having these individual homes where people can come, the wellness groups can come, they can each have their own space. They can come together under the yoga palapa. They can go meditate on the beach. They can go hang by their pool and have their welcome reception. It really creates this environment that these groups are looking for. And so the Ava homes specifically, I think they're absolutely stunning. I think they're so charming and cute and cozy, but they really have these off the grid features that Patrick was mentioning before, and they're affordable. And I know when we say tiny homes, people are like, all right, so like 600 square feet, 700 square feet, but these are between 300 to 400 square feet plus the outdoor space. And the outdoor space that Patrick mentioned really is important because we are in the tropics. All of our time, most of our time, if not all of our time, is really spent outside in the sunshine, in the warmer temperatures. We live outside. And so by integrating these outdoor features, integrating these third spaces for people to come together, we've been able to create this sort of environment for folks. Now, our least expensive home within Ava starts at about $92,000 plus the closing costs and furniture. And then our biggest is the Macaw, which is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath within about 450 square feet. It's really incredible how we were able to really place every nook and cranny and strategically use it to make sure that we're optimizing each little corner. So it's awesome. This is a great option for folks if you're looking at maybe coming down with a family, or if you want to serve couples or people who want to spend time there, maybe use one bedroom as where they're living, the other bedroom as an office. But there's just a lot of flexibility here. As I continue on, I do want to mention, I don't think I have a slide on it, but I do want to mention that for all of the 3 opportunities we're talking about, we have up to 80% financing, 80% financing. If you are interested in the financing aspect, just shoot us a note and we can get you those details. But we'll send you the floor plans if this is of interest to you. But I think that we really spent a lot of time with our architect, with Patrick, with Spencer, with our co-developers, and making sure that these homes are strategically and effectively built for the renter, for the owner, for the tourist, whoever is coming and spending time here. So again, we'd be able to send you all the details. If you're interested when it comes to return on investment chart, we're happy to send you this pro forma. This is for the model. It's about $99,000. All in, it comes out to about $106,000. And here we've been able to base our projections on how we've seen our condos doing. And note that our condos are smaller in size and they don't tend to have full kitchens. So this is a way for people to be close to the beach. Maybe if they're coming with a large group, they can each rent out a home. And especially for our surfers who are coming, for them, it's awesome to be able to just grab their surfboard out of the closet or outside, and then from there, just hop on a wave. So here we expect the Ava homes to do quite well. Net projections at the end of the day, about 14.3%. That's for our industry standard case. And then the conservative case, about 10%. So again, I'm happy to go through these with you line item by line item, depending on what model you're looking at, depending if you're financing or paying cash, and we can certainly go through that. All right, so I'm just looking at the clock here. I have just a couple more minutes to talk about opportunities, and then we'll open the floor to questions. So feel free to type into the Q&A section any questions that are popping up. I only see one so far, which means we're probably covering a lot of information, but we'll make sure to get you the details that are of interest to you. All right, so the third and final community that we're going to talk about is Freedom Village. And this is located in the Boquete area of Panama. And if you're not familiar with where Boquete is, it's on the west side of the country in the cooler climate. It's known as the tropical highlands. So there you typically have 75, 80 degrees during the day and 65 degrees during the night. And Boquete is a very popular spot for tourists and expats to come because it is a very ideal climate. You don't need AC. You're able to keep the windows open and have a refreshing climate year round. And you're just more within the jungle scape. You're not in, the big Panama City. You're in a very relaxing place with infrastructure, with restaurants, with things to do, a lot of hiking and just natural wonders in that part of the country. But Panama tends to be at the top of the investment curve because it has had a great reputation for years. Panama as a country is very stable. They have the Panama Canal, which is in a sense like an ATM machine. So every time a boat goes through, it's cha-ching, cha-ching, and then they're able to deploy those funds into improvement in the country. So it's a very stable country to be investing in, but as a result, it's higher entry. Again, if you want information on why Panama, we're happy to send you the Panama 101. Email us, you should know what to do, info@ecidevelopment.com, Panama 101. Email that off to us and we'll get you the details. But again, strong economy. They have a huge international airport where it's a hub for Copa Airlines, so you get direct flights from all across the world. And in addition to that, they have attractive residency programs and you're able to pair up ownership of the home with residency. So this is where I was talking about a little bit before. So if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you see Panama City. You move over to where the red pin is on the left-hand side, and that is where we're currently located in between David and Boquete. Those are the two cities that you have out there. You have an airport in David, and then Boquete is really a top tourist and expat destination in Panama. So we're doing the big release of Freedom Village in a few months, but I wanted to at least give you insight to this community. At this point, we have infrastructure in place. It's really quite beautiful. You stand at the top of the property and it's a slight decline down. But when you stand at the top, you have 270-degree views of the mountains. You have creeks and rivers and orchards there already on site. And it's just a really, really stunning location. And for people who like to be out in nature, who like more of that mountain sort of climate, this is a really, really unique place to be. And so within the tiny home community, we have different models, 3 different models. 2 of them can be placed where you see the yellow numbers. And then there's one model, the orchid, that could be placed in the green over there. So it just, again, depends on the size of the home that you want. But what Patrick mentioned, and I would love to mention as well, is the fact that we're going to be integrating teak features into these homes. So many of you heard that we have the teak farms on the east side of the country. We'll be able to mill the logs into lumber and then use that in the construction for these homes. So, I mean, it's going to just be absolutely stunning. So you have 3 models: the hibiscus model, which starts at about 150,000, the heliconia model, which starts at about 150,000. And these are actually a little bit larger in size. They're about 600 square feet. And then we have the orchid model, which is about 120,000 plus closing costs and furniture. And with these models, we're still working on the pro formas. As I mentioned, we haven't done an official launch at this point, but we have taken refundable deposits. If anybody would like to get on the wait list and get the information first, you can even choose the specific location that you want. Let me go back. You can even choose the specific location that you want. And then from there, reserve it. And if something doesn't work out for you, then we're just able to refund you that deposit. But I just want to highlight numbers 1 through 11 for a moment. I think those are probably the best location. They're along the ridge line, looking down to the river. You're not really going to get river views from there because you have all the foliage and the jungle greenery in between. But when you walk out onto your deck like this and you just look down, it's kind of like you're in a treehouse sort of landscape. So it's a really, really, really neat environment. But we don't yet have the pro formas. I'd be happy to send those to you. If Panama is of interest to you, I'd be happy to get those to you. I think they're going to be performing, pretty similar, maybe in between the Belize property and the Nicaragua property. It's just a really incredible location. It's a really beautiful property and a really unique concept to this area. And so I'm going to just highlight 3 key factors for you to bear in mind as you're looking at opportunities. 1 is we do accept cryptocurrency and self-directed IRAs. So you can put both of those to work. Number 2 is we do have financing options available for all 3 opportunities up to 80%. And then we also are able to pair up ownership of these homes with residency if it is you are looking for that. So we do have a special for our folks on the webinar, and something that we've realized is a lot of people are looking for diversification. They're just looking to, like we said before, spread your eggs. You don't want all those eggs in one basket. And so we've offered a trifecta model for folks who are looking at all of the opportunities. So there's a discount for folks who are looking at the different opportunities here, and we'd be able to get you those details. All right, so we have a complimentary resource guide for you called the Global Property Resource Kit. This is a must-have document for anybody who is just starting to look at real estate ownership overseas. One of the sections in there is called the 15 must-ask questions. And you want to be asking these 15 questions when you're looking at property in another country generally. Something like, is it plumbed for hot water? I mean, something silly like that where you probably don't think about it in North America because that's standard for you, or Germany. I know we had someone here from Germany. That's probably standard for you, but in certain parts of the world, especially Latin America, that's not standard. So making sure you're asking those questions. If you'd like this resource guide, just email us and just put GRE in the subject line as well with the Global Resource Handbook, and we'll get that over to you. So I know that we're getting close to the hour here. What we'll do is we'll allocate the next 10 minutes for questions. And then from there, as anybody has anything that maybe wasn't asked or you think about after the presentation, we can certainly answer those via email, hop on the phone, Zoom, whichever you prefer, and go from there. Keith, do you want to join us back and read these questions for us?
Yeah, well, very well done, Patrick and Rachel. Though we're talking about tiny homes, there was certainly no small talk there. I really enjoyed the presentation. So while I'm here generating corny jokes, maybe you can be generating some questions if you want to put them in the Q&A area down below. I'll read those off for Patrick and Rachel in just a minute here. And you know, when I'm around the tiny home community and people that really advocate for the lifestyle, oftentimes I hear people say something like tiny home, big life. Of course, what's inside the tiny home matters, including some of these were incredible with that 2-bed, 2-bath, all in 448 square feet. When we talk about the big life, it's really about, yes, what are you doing outside that home, whether it's surfing or gardening or hiking or something more chill like beachcombing. I have spent about 2 weeks in each of these three nations, and some people with Belize don't realize just how proximate it is to the United States. It's only a 2.5-hour flight from Houston. Some people liken the opportunity of buying in Belize to the opportunity of you being able to buy in Hawaii in the year 1950 again, before it got built up and before its prices ran up. In fact, just to give you an idea, being this geography guy that I am, Belize is about the same size as the US state of New Jersey, but New Jersey has 22 times as many people as what you find in Belize, just to give you an idea of the opportunity. And on Ambergris Caye, Belize, the main way that you get around is by golf cart. And in the United States, oftentimes they say something like no shirt, no shoes, no service in a retail store. But in Belize, oftentimes they say no shirt, no shoes, no problem. So you could be cruising around in your golf cart really casually, flip-flops, bare feet, whatever, it doesn't matter. So it's just a really different feeling, a really different mindset that you have there. And then in Nicaragua, that's probably the lowest cost of the three areas that we looked at. If you're someone that happens to be a digital nomad and you're looking to live there yourself long-term rather than rent it to others and are really looking for something low cost. And when it comes to the numbers, yeah, I think Rachel mentioned those pro formas were indeed all cash numbers. So if you put a 20 to 50% down payment, you would probably expect your cash on cash return to be higher. That's something you can look at. They ran most of those pro formas at a 60% occupancy rate there for their short-term rentals. But yeah, when we get back to that thought of tiny home, big life, you know, it really does come to those activities that we do outside. So the first question, I think you already answered it, Rachel. It's from Brent. What are the fly fishing opportunities near these communities? Anything to add there?
Yes, Brent, I would highly recommend Ambergris Caye. We are just paralleling the reef. All around the island is considered a marine reserve. People are coming down for fly fishing all the time, just solely to fly fish. So I would certainly recommend looking at Ambergris Caye for yourself if you're interested personally in fly fishing, but also if you're looking at serving that market.
One thing to quickly add there, Keith and Rachel, is that also in Grand Pacifica, the Nicaragua Ava property, that we actually have a fly fishing quote unquote expert who's buying one of these homes and going to be potentially using it as a kind of a little kiosk to the river right beside us has a lot of different types of fish. And you know, he loves fly fishing and making this his center too. So it's literally walk out your door and fly fish.
And my wife and I have snorkeled off the reef at Ambergris Caye, Belize ourselves, and I've snorkeled in a number of places, including Hawaii, India. I've never had better snorkeling in my life, so that's another activity there off Ambergris Caye. Thanks for the question. The next question is very different. It comes from Prashant. He asked, what are the tax benefits that we can get from investing overseas? So can you talk to us about the tax treatment?
Sure. So a lot of it just depends on where it is you are a citizen from. If you're a citizen of the U.S., then you are required to declare all of your income worldwide, regardless of where it is you're coming in from or you're earning that income from. So it just really depends. It also depends on how you structure it. I'm not an accountant, but what I would recommend, Prashant, is we can set you up with an international accountant and he can go through the benefits with you depending on what your certain situation is, how it is that you structure it. But there are benefits. I mean, Belize, for example, there's no capital gains tax. In addition to that, the rental income tax is very low. It's 1.75%. So Panama, for example, this is a little bit more of our teak side than the tropical tiny home side, but our teak side is certified reforested property. So there's no income tax there. There's no property tax. So it just depends entirely though. And it's a very, case by case basis, just depending on where you're from and what you're investing in and how you're doing it.
Thanks, Prashant. Next, Kyle asks, how is the political climate in Nicaragua after the uprising in 2018? That's Kyle's question. Yeah, I do remember some civil unrest, at least in Managua a couple years ago. Any updates there?
Patrick, I'll let you do this one.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm in Nicaragua, and I'm actually a Canadian citizen and a Nicaraguan resident, so I can speak to it. I've been in Nicaragua for about 15 years. If you look back at the slide that Rachel had on Nicaragua, as a Canadian, I wanted my 15 years ago, my kids were preteen, early teens, and now they're in their late 20s. But they kind of grew up coming down here a lot as well. And one of the reasons that I was comfortable in bringing my family to Nicaragua was just that it was the safest country in the Americas next to Canada. And my daughters would drive around the country in a pickup truck all by themselves, and I never really worried if they had a flat tire. Somebody would run across onto the road and help them change a tire and get them on their way. So in general, Nicaragua is extremely safe and welcoming. The people are super friendly. 2 years ago, try to wrap up the conversation on this very quickly. I mean, 2 years ago, the IMF actually basically told the Nicaraguan government that in order to continue to help, funding infrastructure and those sorts of things, you need to shore up your pension plans, which were, like most countries in the world right now, as baby boomers get older, they're struggling, more people drawing from it than are putting into it. And Nicaragua is no exception to that. So they literally increased their pension plan cost. Most of it actually went to the employer, but for an individual, it was something like 0.075 or something like that. I don't remember. It was minimal. But for whatever reason, it kind of triggered a bit of a backlash from people, and there was marches on the street, and to be honest, it was a lot more subdued than what we've seen in some of the news in the U.S. lately. But I don't want to downplay it. It was a real thing. But if you came here now, it kind of disappeared within a couple months. And if you came down here now, you wouldn't even know. Like, I mean, I literally just drove last night from the airport to Grand Pacifica. I know that's a couple of years ago now that this happened, but there's just no issues, it really, what it has done is from a property value is it's depressed the property value a little bit, and made it for a real opportunity for people to invest now, because people have short-term memories, right? You don't see anything happen, they're gonna, the property values are more than likely to come right back up again very soon.
Well, thanks, Patrick. We have about 6 more questions, so I'm going to try to go quickly. Shane asks, what kitchen appliances come in each location?
Yes, so everything comes with the refrigerator. We have a microwave. We do not have a dishwasher. I've had people ask about dishwashers more than I even realized we're interested in dishwashers. But as you can imagine, dishwashers draw a lot of energy. So we don't have dishwashers, but you have the refrigerator, you have the microwave, you have the coffee pot. What we do, Shane, is make sure that it has everything in order to be rented out and for somebody to live there full time. So we can send you a whole list of everything that is included in the ownership, but we cover all of the appliances for you. You don't have to go out and try to get those. It's all part of the package price.
Now, the next question, Ricardo asks, what type of financing is available, rate and term? I think you touched on this a little. Do you have a few more details?
We do. So we work with an international bank here on the island called Key Bank. It's C-A-Y-E, not the K-E-Y that we've seen in the States before. C-A-Y-E. They've been in business since the early 1990s when it first started out as a mortgage company, and then later on morphed into a full-fledged bank. So they serve the international market, foreigners who are coming into this country or into this region and are looking for real estate loans. So it depends on what you want how long you want the term to be, but typically it's a 30-year amortization, 5-year balloon, and then the interest rate is 6.9%. And then it just varies a little bit depending if you're doing 80% or if you want a lower balloon time. So it just depends, Ricardo, but we can get you those details. Now, the one thing I just want to mention, make sure everybody hear me on this, is that if you're expecting that 80% financing, 3% interest like we have in the bank, just don't expect it to take that out, erase that from your memory. Just realize that that's not really realistic here in this part of the world, especially if you're coming in as a foreigner. What we've had a couple of owners with us do is they were able to refi their home or get a line of credit against their home, and then from there use use that money that was coming in towards the purchase of their Belize home or their Nicaragua ABA home. So it just depends on how you want to do it. But if you do have that sort of flexibility in the States, I would recommend looking at that option as well.
Thanks, Ricardo. Taryn has a question related to financing. He asked, can an LLC receive the financing, or is it just for personal loans? Okay.
Yes, the LLC can receive financing, and you'll work with Key Bank on that, CAYE Bank, and they'll be able to help you with that corporate loan.
Juan says, you may have already talked about this, but are there management services available for properties acquired for rental?
Yes, we have in-house rental management companies at all of the properties. In Nicaragua, we've already been in business at Grand Pacifica since the 2000s. So we have a very established rental management company there. In addition to that, we've been in Belize since 1998. So we have a very established rental management company here. And then in addition to that, Panama, we don't necessarily, we haven't had the property there before, but we actually do at Los Islotes, which is on the Azuero Peninsula. But this is a new property for us in Boquete, and there we'll take all the expertise that we've learned over the years and have one there for you as well. So it's all done in-house, and that's a huge point. I'm glad that you asked that, Juan. It's something that you do want to know, before even owning a property, because you being in another country don't want to be dealing with that. I know a lot of times people think Airbnb is the way to go, and that's great if you're within close proximity to your Airbnb rental. But if you're in another country, I would say don't even attempt to do Airbnb. Let the professionals take care of it, and they'll make sure that it's being done properly.
That's a great question, Juan. I can tell he listens to the podcast. I often talk about how the management and your team is often even more important than your property. Now, we've got a question from Tyler. He's really thinking about what it would be like to live there. I can tell because Tyler asks, where can you store something like a surfboard in a small space? Is there a practical way to do that?
We did consider that. And so there are lockout closets which are tall enough to be storing those surfboards. So there is space for that, Tyler, in all of the 4 homes that you saw. And it's a very good question. I don't know, Tyler, if you're a surfer yourself, but I'm glad that you asked that.
Well, the last question that we have here is from Tammy, and it's related to the titling. How would one take title to these properties if you wish to rent them out? In that case, if you know you'd like to rent them out, are there pros and cons of doing that in your own name versus using an entity?
So it just depends on what personally is best for you. You are able to title any of the properties that we have in your own name or in a company or corporation, just totally up to you. I know some people prefer to distance themselves from the real estate that they own, so they'd rather put it in a company, which you're able to do that, but you can put it in your personal name. You do get full title in all of the countries that we work in, but it just depends. I know like Panama, for example, Panama and here in Belize too, if you're using your self-directed IRA, the IRA custodian cannot hold title to the property. It does need to be through an entity. So your self-directed IRA would own an entity, would own an LLC, let's say Nevada LLC, for example, and then that Nevada LLC would be the owner of the home in Belize or in Panama. So just something to bear in mind. There are little nuances like that, but there are tons of nuances like that, but we just want to chat with you depending on what country is most of interest, and then we can further discuss those too. But yeah, it just depends, Tammy, however it makes the most sense for you.
Well, we had a ton of smart questions there. I would only expect smart questions from a smart audience like this. So it was really fun and dreamy to talk about this stuff today. Small home in big life. Mm-hmm.
I love it. Keith, you have the best puns. I should have worked on some small puns before I before I got started here. I was trying to think of some on the spot, but you're a little bit more creative than I am.
Oh yeah, living large in tiny homes. That's what we all want to do.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Keith, for joining us. Patrick, thank you as well. Everybody listening, thank you so much. This was Keith's first webinar. Keith, you did amazing. And we look forward to hearing from everybody. And one thing I just realized I did not mention is that we do discovery tours to all of the countries that we talked about. We have a full agenda for January through about May of 2021. I know there's just still a lot of craziness going on in the world, a little bit of uncertainty, but we have at least tentatively scheduled dates. So if anybody wants to come down to these countries, just shoot us an email there and we'll get those details over to you. And Keith, maybe you'll be able to accompany us as well.
Oh, I would like nothing more. Yes. And I'm probably the northernmost attendee here, and I would contend that I deserve it more than anyone.
Well, especially now with winter. And I don't know, how many hours of sunlight are you seeing up there in Alaska?
Oh boy, it's down to about 6 right now.
Oh,
So
goodness.
yeah,
Sunshine
you
sounds
deserve it.
good.
Well, it's always 12 down here.
Yeah, well done. Great. Well, cool. Well, I'm so glad we could do this and talk about this dreamy stuff. Thanks to all the attendees for joining me live, and I wish you keep living your daydream.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Have
everybody.
a great evening or afternoon or wherever in the world you may be. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.